on camera real quick.
If you had to enforce a quarantine mandate, is that something that you would be doing?
No, we don't enforce that.
So if your sheriff said you got to, what would you do?
I don't have a sheriff.
Okay, awesome.
Good answer. How do you know my name? All calls alert, all calls alert.
You're going to issuing Niner.
Clear. Now, one thing that's damning is the difference between a star and a black hole would subjectively be a habitable zone, but devoid of that, missing the purpose of keeping it safe would be something too late. And so the difference, well, again, between a habitable zone, a star, and a black hole would be the laws of nature keeping it there. And so the mistake every time is when you can't stop something bad before it happens, you start flashing the lights of science. Cover up. And so what a flow is when it's not disturbed would be the way. And so what a star would do is have a core, and gravity sucks. A star is really heavy. And so you've got all this pressure lined up because there's stuff inside of the star making that bulk density, and it's moving. Quick, in, out. That's how, when you get friction enough, sparks start flying. This is what a star is, but it is able to do this constantly for how long has the sun been up? And so within that rotation of symmetry is nuclear fission. And the pressures amount for a symmetry for that to happen would be the pressures about the atoms firing so significantly that it's quantumly noticeable. Now, I'd probably figure how noticeable it is quantumly would be how much of their rules of quantum mechanics are occurring at a star's core. And that can be mapped out. And the more that they're following quantum rules would be easier indications to read how stable the star's core actually is. Ergo, its bottom feature would be, so you get all the stars. And so, and again, the wages of sin are death. And what more destructive thing in nature is commonly known as chaotic is a black hole. And this is because once you get past a certain point of event horizon, you can never escape it. It's just as death clutches takes the life out of a room. But one thing that Jesus became was sin. And so then he thereby defeated death. He went to hell and bragged to the devil supposedly that, he never sinned, and now the devil's in trouble. He lost the bet that God had gambled. And so he did that by getting shut inside of a tomb and then teleporting from that tomb into hell to do that. And so then when they opened the tomb, they found the cloths that Jesus was under gone. And so just imagine a tomb being opened and nothing in it. That's almost as a black hole, but it's singularity inside of a black hole. If you don't know, it's an infinitely dense point. That's what Jesus overcame. And so that's a great representation of that. And I hope you're seeing the backdrop. I just passed a playground, kids in it, speaking on how, like Jesus said too, if you take away the kid out of humanity, you might as well tie a millstone to your neck and throw yourself into a sea before you go and see God. The kid aspect would be of an adult where their body, the wages of sin are death. So the more that you pick your poison in carrying your cross, because no one's perfect, and so we all age different. The different body parts of aging could be that of, you have the eyes of like a 60-year-old, but you're 32 years of age. My eyes when I was like a kid would be blind in water because it would be so bright that it would be blind. And so then in college, I got my eye on my right had struck a nerve, and now I'm succumbed to what is an eye floater. And as much as that is just an example, another one is of like lungs. If you have lungs of a 80-year-old, but you're like a 12-year-old, it's just you smoked habitually from like the age of 8 until 12. And so that would be another thing where you would be like used as what is of an age that you aren't, but then the kid in you would be like the caringness. And that's what in the Bible love is that like you show that compassion as like just being a child of God, if like you're doing his works, because that is what is missing in the atomic structure in its interior, is the script and instructions of how to be immortal, is what the bigwigs would be going for in eternal cell lines, is one scripting of what modern day fat cats are after, the battle for immortality, so that you could be pronounced as a kid would be in the duration of your lifespan. And so one thing that would grant that is immunity. Your immune system being complex as what a cabbage patch of a labyrinth is. If a bunny was caught in the middle, it would just be eating all the cabbage all around it. It wouldn't care it's in the labyrinth. And so the complexion of how much an immune system is, when in contrast to everyone's made different, I think is a scripting of a parallel of how much the scenery within an atom is drawn up in quantum mechanics. The parallel of the two would need somewhat of a better arbiter, like a star in a black hole. Now I'm tempted to speak a little bit about Christianity, just because all the poor Democrats, they would be sending text messages of Bible scripture to their loved ones during the moments of January 6th. God bless them. So in what a blood sacrifice is, I first am noting that in the Bible it's like we're all children of God. And so that gives a second layer to why would God allow a kid to die, but then how much so an adult in the eyes of God would be childlike, of course, because they're less than what God is. But he actually doubled down and gave his only son, God knowing that his son was going to get crucified, was on a suicide mission. So he, knowing that humans are not perfect and that not being perfect would sin, Jesus never did sin. And then he didn't live on earth as a God, though he did everything through God, performed miracles. And so if you didn't catch that doubling onto, I'm gonna decohere and decompress what that means. In atoms, it would stumble the smartest minds of Niels Bohr and Rutherford in the early days of the 1950s, the golden age of science. where we found out what atoms are, but we didn't know what was going on inside of them. Nowadays, in current studies, we have quantum mechanics as the best shot at we've got at these devices that would measure the activity that goes on inside the atom. There's one problem, is that quantum mechanics has more holes in it than Swiss cheese. And so, though there's accuracies with measuring devices, it's far and sparse when trying to connect the dots, because it's the closest and the smartest guys up there saying at the forefronts, if you're starting to get a headache in understanding quantum mechanics, then you know that you're doing it right. So instead of a black hole being made from a star supernovaing at 3W from nuclear fission crapping out, just replace nuclear fission with human rights, as in no one should be hit with an industrial skill weapon. And then quantum mechanics will take it from there. As intricate as a complexion can be, a variable to a variant, please.